everybody! Thanks for stopping by to check out the latest from Sailing Emerald Steel. So a while back, Jules and I put out a series of videos called Living the Dream on a Low Budget, and these videos detailed how we built Emerald Steel and how we got into the cruising lifestyle. We got a lot of feedback from you guys saying that while you love the video series, you wish we would have added some pictures to the video. And many of our new subscribers don't realize that we built Emerald Steel. So in this video we've done a compilation up to the point where we launched her, and we've added lots of pictures, so hopefully you guys will get something out of this video. And if you've already seen it, you'll enjoy it for the new pictures that we've added. And those of you that haven't seen it, hopefully it will inspire you to get out there and live your dream as well. And before we get started, we'd once again like to thank all of you that left a comment and a thumb up on our last video. Thank you guys so much.
In 1968, when I was 18 years old, back in Czechoslovakia, behind the Iron Curtain, I decided that live under communism, where there is no freedom at all, was not really for me. And escape it was not exactly easy, because the borders was very much protected with electric fences, watchtowers, guards. Some places was even the minefields. Knowing that running from Czechoslovakia to the west was almost impossible, I decided to make my way to Yugoslavia, and from Yugoslavia escape to Italy. I stowed away in a freight train and made a way across the border. It was a one hell of an experience, which brought me many nightmares and the days afterwards. Once I got to Italy, I spent 6 months in the camp for refugees, but it was not a picnic. It was actually very hard with all the refugees from the Eastern Europe. After 6 months I immigrated to the United States. First to New York, and after a year I went to the Southern California. After 6 years I purchased a house, and I was in the process of building a second house when my neighbor stopped by and introduced me to a sailing. He told me he's going to be building a boat. He took some bricks which was laying in the backyard. He measured off some distance and laid the freight bricks on the grass, and he said, "That's going to be my sailboat." I looked at him like if he was crazy, but no, he said that's going to be his sailboat, and he started telling me that which part of a sailboat was going to be. Then he went home and brought me a book. The book was Dow by
Robin Lee Graham.
Robin Lee Graham.
I read it.
He was a 16-year-old boy who circumnavigated the globe solo. After reading that book, I was changed man. But I came to America to get rich, so the idea of getting sailboat and go sailing always stayed in the back of my mind, but I was busy doing something else. In 1980, when I was in the process of building my 7th house, economy went to hell. Prime rate interest went up to 21.5%, and at the time you couldn't buy nor sell any real estate. And I've been in construction, being electrical and general contractor. I didn't have any jobs. And throughout the difficulties, I pretty much end up losing all the houses by selling them, but not realize any profits of it. I end up buying a restaurant from Susan's parents, and Susan decided to stay working for me, and after a while we started a relation and got married. We had a house on the hill, 32-foot Morgan sailboat in the marina, and a Porsche parking in front of the restaurant. We was working 90 hours a week, 7 days, for 3 years, till we got all burned out and decided that there gotta be a better way of life. We came to the realization that if a man has $1,000 and he's satisfied, he's a rich. If a man has $1 million and still wants some more, he's a poor sucker. So we embark on a different kind of lifestyle.
Took a different tack, you could say.
We decided to build a boat. One day we were driving down the freeway, and I had a four-wheel drive truck in front of me with two dirt bikes on the back of it, and he had a big sign on it. It said that the one who dies with the most toys wins. I was thinking about that's an interesting statement. One who dies with the most toys wins. After thinking for a while about that statement, I said to myself, no, it is the one who plays with his toys the most is the winner. Anyway, it was around lunchtime. I asked Susan, how about go for a lunch? So we decided to go to a Pacific Beach to a average restaurant, but with a very beautiful view. It's on a boardwalk with a view of the ocean. After the lunch, we had a coffee and a cigarette. We were watching waves breaking on the beach, staring into the horizon, and I asked Susan, how would you like to just sail all the way there to the horizon and don't turn back, just keep on sailing? And she said, that would be really interesting. And I said, you know what, I have an idea. So I explained to Susan that what I think we should do, sell everything, house, sports car, Morgan, and anything we had the bills on. Pay all of our bills so we don't have any payments whatsoever. And then go and build a boat cash. That's the only ways we can fulfill our dream. When we finish lunch, I paid the bill and I left the cigarettes on the table as we left. Later on, Susan asked me, didn't you forget cigarettes on the table? And I said, no, I left them there purposely. Because to be truly free, you have to give up all the bad habits. When I escaped from Czechoslovakia to be free, I suddenly realized that I was not free. I was a slave to desires of the materialistic positions. So I know we have to get liberated. After selling everything and pay all the bills off, we had enough money left to buy a trailer and a pickup truck. I need a pickup truck to be able to go back to construction. We also decided on the beginning that I go back to construction and Susan's going to be working with me.
I was basically his apprentice.
And we decided that we will not take any job bigger than us two can do it. And also we made a policy that we will take only one job at a time, so we will never have to spend the night not be able to sleep, worrying about people being unhappy and which job we're going to do first. So we only took one job, finished, and made sure the customer is happy. Also one other decision we made. When I went for estimate, if I didn't like the people, I would not take the job. Doesn't matter how much money was involved, I will not take the job because I did not want to have problems. Escaping from Czechoslovakia was a freedom, but I didn't want to become a slave to money.
So if there were any bad vibes there, we didn't take the job.
Every time we drove down the freeway by the old town in San Diego, we saw a boatyard where people was building a boat. So one day we stopped by, we went into boatyard and we talked to people. And we were very interesting about the steel boat.
There was probably about 8 or 10 people building their boats there right off the freeway.
Yes.
And there was probably 5 or 6 steel boats being built, a couple of fiberglass.
So anyway, we decided that would be a place to build our boat. Deciding upon a boat, you really have to ask yourself what you're looking for. It's going to be just a weekend sailor. It's going to be a boat you're going to live on it. Are you planning to just make a short passage, one passage, or are you planning to cruising for a longer period of time? As we were thinking what kind of boat would be the best for a cruising, naturally there are many boats. Trimarans, multi-hulls, which are faster, they have a much more space, much more steady platform, but they are very limited to how much weight it can carry. Racing cruising boats with fin kills, which are fast passage makers and also good into the windward, but also they are very much limited into the capacity due to being very light displacement. And also they are not very comfortable because they are light, so they heel excessively. So always liked traditional boats.
Yes, we love traditional boats.
So once we stopped at the boatyard, I was talking to those people, asked them how I can go about getting a plans for a boat. And one of them suggested that we should check one of the cruising magazines, and there are people who advertise. So we decided to check out the magazine.
We were looking for boat plans, and we came across Bruce Roberts. He was actually the predominant person that was selling boat plans in the magazine, so we decided to contact him and send for a booklet that was showing all of his different boats he had available to build.
So after going through the booklet from Bruce Roberts, we decided on a 38-foot spray. And he just had it plans on a sale for $199, which normally regular price would be $750.
With full-size patterns,
yes,
too.
It said it, and it comes with all the instructions and full-size patterns for frames. So we were thinking, okay, so let's go
order them.
And order them.
Yep. So the package finally arrived in the mail, and it was a big day. We were pretty excited. And we opened everything up and laid it out on the table, and we had the full-size patterns and a rather small booklet, and that's pretty much all there was. So we were kind of a little bit confused about it. We expected it to be something more.
So we thought for sure they forgot to send us something, because we couldn't make sense out of it.
Right.
But after reading over and over, suddenly it started making more sense. So and a couple of days later we realized that we do have everything we needed. So the little money we still had saved from a sale of our stuff, we decided to buy a welder, oxy-accelerating torch, and a rental space.
Yep.
When we decided to build a boat, most people were saying that we are crazy, that it's not such an easy thing to do.
Pretty much everybody said we were crazy.
And we had no experience of building it. But we decided...
Although Jules had a lot of mechanical experience with his construction. He was pretty good at putting things together.
The one requirement Susan had when she said, okay, we're going to be building a boat, is that she doesn't want to just stand around and handing me tools.
Yes, definitely.
So I said to her, you know what, how about if you learn how to weld? None of us ever welded. But my philosophy was this. You was working in a restaurant decorating cakes. So he had a steady hand for working with a whipped cream.
Good qualification.
So I said, if you know how to put a nice whipped cream beat on a cake, you should be able to do the same with the welding. And that decision was made. Susan's going to do the welding, and I'm going to do the mainly cutting, grinding, and just general putting things together.
Right.
When we came back to the boatyard to see about the space, I talked to some of those guys, and Susan's going to do the welding, and she was
23.
She was 23 years old at the time. I was 36. She was there with the shorts and the sandals, and the guy said, sure, she's gonna do the welding.
Not exactly looking like a big burly welder.
Thinking that all the heavy leather jackets, helmets, hot sparks, hard work in all different positions, they didn't believe that a girl can actually do it.
Right.
Now we had a trailer to live in, pickup truck to go to work, place we rented for building a boat, welder, and all the necessary tools. The two things we didn't have was money to purchase material, and Susan didn't know how to weld. I knew that starting will not be as hard as was years ago when I came to America, which I didn't have any family, friends, I had no money, and I couldn't speak the language. Now, being a contractor, knew the language, and had a Susan, it was much easier than it was years ago. Plus, very soon I found out that Susan was worth more than $1 million in the bank. So we decided to put an ad in the paper under services offering, just small two-liner under electrical services, and I hope we get a job. 2 days later, I got a call from a guy who asked me if I can stop by his house, take a look at his blueprints. He was getting ready to remodel his house. So I went for estimate. I was kind of surprised because he was wanting me to build a room addition which consists of a living room, a laundry room and bathroom, because I only advertised for electrical work. So I asked him where he got my phone number, and he told me I was recommended to him by my old customer. So anyway, I told him I could do the job for him, but it would take a little longer than normal because I am not to hire anybody. It's only me and Susan would work with me. It was totally fine with him because he said he's going to pay as go. So he was very happy about that situation. So we decided that we will be working 4 days a week. This would give him a chance to make money while we help to spend it. I actually, during the discussion, found out that he was a professional welder. So I exchanged with him an idea that we will be working Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And Saturday, Sunday, while I'm working on his room addition, he will be teaching Susan how to weld. When I came home, I told Susan what happened. We couldn't believe how the luck favored us. And not only we got a job to make money, to build a boat, but also then she's going to have a teacher to learn how to weld.
So, in my 23rd year of life, I was about to make a big change by learning all these different trades. When Jules and I were working on the room addition, he was teaching me how to do electrical, plumbing, carpentry, everything that goes along with building a room addition, and I was also learning how to weld. And when he got off work, he would take a couple hours to teach me welding while Jules was still working on the room addition. And not only how to weld, but he gave me several books to read about all the different properties of metal and what type of rod to use. It was pretty complicated for me, but I was a pretty quick learner, and everything worked out in the end. I was learning a lot in that year. I thought that I knew what hard work was because I had been working in my parents' restaurant since I was 14 years old, and then with Jules and I when we had our restaurant. But that year, between the construction and the welding, I really learned what hard work was about, physical hard work. It was an interesting experience.
So when we started building a room addition, and Susan started learning how to weld, in our days off, we went to a metal shop. We purchased 2 bars of steel, a 1/2 inch thick by 20 feet long by 12 inches wide. That was our beginning of building an emerald steel. It was for a bottom plate called a shoe of the boat. After Susan welded 2 pieces together, I cut a plate with a torch, and afterwards we went to the lunch. When we got back, we almost died when we saw our straight 40 feet long piece of plate now look like a crescent. I honestly got scared. We were thinking, oh my God, now you're going to have to go buy a new steel, something went wrong. But the guy who was building steel boat next to us came laughing. He says, don't worry, just go and cut the other side exactly same as you done this one, and you will see what happened. So I listened to him, and I marked the other side. I cut the plate. And after about an hour or so, I looked and the plate came straight.
It was magic.
it was straight up again as the arrow, like it's from very beginning. So it was our first learning experience. Then steel works differently than the lumber I'm used to in the construction.
Yes.
So we got back to working 7 days a week, like in our restaurant. Only this time it was for a limited time. Between working on a boat and a room addition, we were very seldom spend any time at home. So we made one major change. We decided that we move our trailer into a boatyard, and this way we wouldn't have to be driving in the morning to the boatyard and the evening back. You could spend more time working on the boat. We came to a realization that instead of worrying or how to make more money, we decided to pay more attention how we're spending it, because you can never make enough money if you don't watch how you spend it. Our rent in the boatyard was $120 a month, so paying $120 for a boatyard where we build our boat and also for the rent was a one hell of a good deal. This way all the money we made we could put towards the boat.
So as we were working on the boat and I was welding, there was never any shortage of other guys in the yard that had their own steel boats that were stopping by to give me advice and check out my work and make sure I was doing a good job.
After room addition was finished, we started working on a boat full time. Saturday, Sunday, when everybody left, no one stayed in the boat there except us.
It was pretty hard on me. Jules was kind of determined that we were going to be getting out of the yard as soon as possible, and he told me, you know, Susan, the boat's going to take X amount of hours to build, and we can either extend it out over a long period like everybody else here is doing in the yard, or we can get out as soon as we possibly can. And so that's why we were working as much as we possibly could on the boat, and it was hard.
The truth is, there were times when actually Susan was crying because it was so hard. You know, it was very hot during the summer, and working with a full gear on you, you know, it's not exactly very pleasant.
And all the burns and weld spatter. It was hard.
I remember one time when a hot piece of metal from the welding fell into her boot and started burning his leg, and she was jumping and screaming because nothing could be done.
Couldn't get the boot off fast enough. It was pretty bad.
She left a little scar on her leg.
I have some battle scars.
So there were moments which we will never forget about him, but little by little boat was taking a shape, and we were getting more and more excited.
And in the evenings, when after we finished with our working, Jules was always out there sitting by the boat for quite a bit of time, studying things and deciding what was going to be done the following day. So even though I put all my blood, sweat, and tears and half of my soul into the project, Jules put his full soul into the project, and blood, sweat, and tears too.
Anyway, moving to the boatyard became very beneficial to us, because in the morning when we got up, I could grab a cup of coffee and go start a look at the project and decide what's going to be done next. And while Susan made a breakfast, and the same thing during lunchtime and dinner time, Susan was able to make a food for us, but I was able to continue working on the boat. So I was able working pretty much from the sun rise to sun down, and save a lot of money on fuel driving up and down. So in building a boat, the first thing we've done was erecting frames. And after all the frames was put into place with all the chines and stringers, time has come to do the plating. Now the problem was with doing a plating, that some of the plates were heavy as much as 700, 800, 900 pounds. So it was very, very difficult how to move them around, not having any kind of forklift or any other kind of mechanical equipment to do the job. So when we ordered a plating and they came to delivered, we had them drop it as close to the boat as possible. And then what we had to do is Susan had to weld a hook on a plate, and then with the common longs attached to a strong point in the frame of the boat, we dragged the plates little by little towards the boat till we got close enough to be able to work on it. Now plates being so heavy, you didn't want to be moving them around more than necessary. So the way you go about it, we bought a 8/0-inch plywood, and with that plywood we use as a template. So we put the plywood up, mark exactly to a shape as required, then put the plywood down on a steel plate, mark it off and cut it. Now hopefully when we lift the plate up to the place, it would fit perfectly, because otherwise you have to take it down. It was no fun at all. So that part of building a boat was quite hard, but again we managed little by little to put it together.
Through innovation and using some homemade tools.
Anyway, one day the owner of the boatyard, whose name was Fred, he was in his late 70s, so we call him Old Fred, as everybody else. He stopped by and he said, "Hey Jules, you're an electrician, I would want you to do some work for me." He had one electric meter in a boatyard which told him how much electric was used, and then he divided between people building boats. So he didn't think that was really fair, because some people work more than others, so he was wanting to install electric meter for each of the spaces where people was building steel boats, because they were the one who used a lot of electric with the welders and so forth. So anyway, I made a deal with him where we exchanged, he bought the material and I did the labor for him, exchange for 1 year of free rent plus some cash involved. Anyway, so I did a job for him. So here we had a boatyard paid for a year. About 2 months later, he came by and he was very disturbed because he couldn't figure out, when he deduct those 6 electric meters from his main meter, then it did not evened up. He was $3.60 off. He just couldn't sleep because he couldn't figure out where the $3.60 went. So he asked me if I can look into it. So I went and checked out the lines and I found an old water heater. It was turned off but not disconnected, so that was drawing some electric. So anyway, he was so happy that he found where his $3.60 went. Now the man was very, very wealthy. He, the place where we was building our boat on the street, all street was full of businesses, and he pretty much owned a half of it, property where people paying for the rent. So he was very wealthy, but he was very, very tight. Anyway, as we continue building the boat, we start running out of money from the room addition which we had. But luckily, old Fred came by me one day and he says, Jules, I have a problem with my deck in my house. Can you stop by and take a look at what we can do about it? So I went to his house, look at his deck, and was underneath the beams was pretty much rotten. So I told him what has to be done to replace all those beams, but he again tried to cut the corners. He told me, you know, he doesn't want to spend money to rebuild it, and plus he's not going to be living much longer. So if I just fix it so we're going to last for a few more years, he'll be happy with it. So I didn't feel very good about doing half-ass job, but anyway, that's how he wanted. That's how I fixed it. I fixed the job for him. And luckily, as me and Susan was working on his deck, a neighbor stopped by and he liked the work. So he asked me if I would be interested to build a garage with an office in it. So I said, sure, I will be more than happy. As soon as I finish with this project, I will be able to see what I can do for him. Now, Fred gave me a beautiful letter which was stated, and I highly recommended you to my neighbor because I believe you will do a good job. So anyway, I was very happy. We got another job, so we can continue with working on a boat. So between building a garage and working on a boat, time was going by. Our plating was completed. We decided to sandblast the boat. So after the sandblasting was done, we put 3 coats of 2 parts epoxy primer. Now the time came to make a decks and a cabin top. We decided to build a deck and a cabin top on a half-inch mahogany plywood and fiberglass, mainly to keep a boat cooler in the summer and warmer in the winter time. And also if you drop things on the deck, or like a chain or shackles or tools, you prevent from rusting.
A lot of noise too.
Yeah, a lot of noise and sound. So anyway, we start working on that part of a boat, and we've been by that time almost 1.5 years in a boatyard. Now we was always concerned about buying an engine, knowing that a marine engine costs anywhere between $7,000 and $9,000. It was a pretty big sum at one time, not like buying a steel which you can buy piece by piece. But like always in the past, luck smiled at us. There was a young guy in a boatyard. He was ex-Navy man, who, when he was with his Navy ship in Seattle, Washington, he found a brand new Peugeot engine from the company called Pics, who was going through bankruptcy. So he was able to pick up a brand new engine still in the cradle for less than would be a wholesale for that engine, because as I say, company was going bankrupt. And he was able to bring that engine to San Diego, aboard his Navy ship. And one day, as we talked, and he was saying that he has that engine, but it's kind of too big for his 32-foot boat.
He was building a Tahiti catch, right?
He was building a Tahiti catch, 32-foot boat, out of steel too. So he was telling me if I would be interested to buy the engine from him, as I showed the interest that I was looking for an engine. So I asked him how much he would want it for an engine, and he said he paid for it $2,200 and came with all the conversion, conversion. So I knew right away that was a one hell of a deal.
Yeah, transmission too, right?
It's totally conversion, solid conversion, hard transmission, and so on. Anyway, I knew a good deal when I saw one. So naturally, right away, I told him I would be more than interested. So one weekend, we transferred the engine from his shed, where he built his boat, to my boat. And I couldn't believe how lucky we again ended up. Then I ended up with an engine which normally would cost, like I say, between $7,000 and $9,000 for $2,200. Then one day, Fred stopped by and he asked me if I want to do some more electrical work for him in the yard. But again, he was going to cut the corners. So I told him, Fred, if you want to work done, not up to the code, you have to find somebody else.
Especially with electrical, you know.
I'm not interested, because if somebody gets hurt, I don't want to be, you know, have that thing on my neck. So Fred was turned out to be really kind of ugly about it. So when I stopped at his office to pay the rent, he looked at me and he said, "So do you want to do the work for me or not?" And I said, "Fred, if you don't want to do it the right way, I'm not interested." So he looked at me and he says, "You know what? I'm doubling your rent. That's the deal." And I look at him, and he had a kind of sick-looking smile on his face. It's kind of
revengeful looking.
It's kind of smile when a rich man knows he got you by the balls. And I look at him and I said, "You know, Fred, I'm leaving in the first of the month. That's the final deal." I turn around and start walking away. And he was yelling something after me. "We're not finished. I will show it to you, and you cannot talk to me like that." Anyway, I walked out, and as I was walking back to the boat, I was thinking, how am I going to explain to Susan that we have a 1 month time to finish the boat and get the ladder at the boatyard, because I was not about to kissing somebody's ass just because he was rich and I was poor.
So he comes back to the boat and lets me know this little bit of good information. And if I recall correctly, I think I told him that he was absolutely out of his mind. There was not a chance in hell that we were going to be able to launch the boat in a month's time. At this point, we had just finished the cabin and the deck, and basically all we had was a shell. So I just didn't think it was possible. So Jules can take it from this point.
So, as Susan said, I came and told her the story. Naturally, she was a little bit upset and concerned.
Just a little bit.
Not really couldn't see how it can be done. Anyway, she was not the only one who felt that way. Some of those people in the boatyard, as a news spread, they came over and said, "Hey, Jules, you're not very smart. You know, you should have kissed Fred's ass so you could finish your boat." But after they left, I was thinking, you know what? They kiss asses of other people all their life, and they wonder how come they have a bad taste in their mouth. So anyway,
ass kissing is not Jules' forte.
So anyway, I went through the boat and made a decision what things absolutely has to be done for us to be able to move in the 30 days. The shell was done, all the welding, the seacocks was installed, a cabin top, decks all were fiberglass.
No hatches.
That was it. Our engine was installed, but it was not in a running condition because no plumbing nor electric was done whatsoever. So decision was made, and first thing what must be done is a finish painting. So we decided in a week time to put a final coat of polyurethane paint on top and a bottom paint on the bottom. After that was done, another thing I just want to have it done was bulwarks. So I ordered a lumber, because a lumber which was already cut to the size were too expensive. We ordered rough lumber, and using friend's mill machine, I was able to cut lumber to the size with a table saw, and use the mill machine to cut it to the right thickness. So after we installed the bulwark, next important thing was hatches. We had to be able to close up the boat for security reasons, and also when a rain comes and so on. So I started right away building hatches, and Susan was helping finish sanding it and just beautified it. So once we installed the hatches, next thing was to install a floor in a boat, because once we launched the boat, it would be very difficult to build any interior, due to the fact that most what you use for building interior, you use a level, and a boat being on the water, level would not be used any longer. So by having a floor installed, we would be able to work from the floor in the right angles and so forth. So we went got a plywood for a floor, we installed the floor, and also we purchased some insulation. We got a 2-inch thick closed cell insulation, and we isolated all boat, so our boat is actually isolated like a refrigerator, with a 2-inch insulation over the steel and also the decks and the cabin top. Now, we did not have a steering because we were kind of short on the money.
We were very short on money.
We were short on the money because we just spent most what we had on purchasing an engine and all the fiberglass and the resin and all the material needed to complete the decks and cabin. So we were very short on the money, so installing a steering would have been cost a little over $2,000 for all the parts. So I knew that was not be able done, so in a hurry made up a tiller, emergency tiller for our steering, for our rudder. A piece of oak, which was 2x4. I shaped it to make a temporary steering. Now, another expense was paying to a boat mover to move us in the water. We did not have the money, so I went talk to a boat mover and told him I was a contractor and I would be willing to exchange some labor for his work. And luckily he said that he would like to have a skylight installed in his house. So I told him, oh, it will be no problem, I'll be more than happy to install a skylight for him. So decision was made, then at the end of the month he will come on Saturday when his workers have day off, and I will help him to put the boat on the trailer, and I would drive my truck with a sign, a wide load, and he would be following me with the boat behind to take the Cattenburg Marina where the boats will be launched. So this part worked out good. Now we had a boat mover who
San Diego boat movers, they were good.
We made a deal, then he's going to be moving us in exchange for me doing some work for him in his house. While all this thing was going on, Fred was always stopping by and smirking and kind of laughing and not saying much. But we was very busy working on the boat, getting hatches and as much as we could on the interior.
He was plotting that we weren't going to be able to finish in time, I think.
Yeah, he didn't believe it. He didn't believe it can be done because at that stage most people still stay on the boat for another 2-3 years. Average time to be about 5, 6, 7 years for people staying on the boat there. We've been there right now for about 17 or 18 months, a year and a half. Now, next thing was where are we going to put our boat? So the decision was that we'll be anchoring it in the San Diego Bay.
In a place called Rock and Roll, if that tells you anything.
And so I needed to purchase also anchors, which we didn't have any. So I purchased 2 Danforths. I believe they were like 45 pounds each, with 100 feet of half-inch chain, 50 feet for each one, and 300 feet of 3/4 inch line, 150 feet per each anchor. And using swivel, this engine was, then we will anchor from the shelter island, from the beach, and that's where we would be staying while we finishing the boat. Naturally, again, Susan thought I was crazy because she just couldn't see how the hell you can move in a boat which had nothing except floor in it. But before we actually left the boatyard, I was able to build a cover over the engine where the sink's gonna go, and also build a one bunk place we could sleep in.
It was called Living Rough.
So anyway, we were pretty much getting closer to day to leave, when about 4 days before leaving the boatyard, a boat mover guy called me and told me, "Jules, you gotta stop by, we have to talk. The moving of the boat is on hold." I said, what happened? I could not understand. He said, "Old Fred just called me and he said not to have anything to do with you because you were a dishonest man. So I want to talk to you first about it." So I said, "Damn, Fred got me, huh?" So what's going to happen now? As I hang up the phone with the boat mover, I was saying to myself, gee, that old Fred really got me. What the hell are we going to do now? And I really knew that I was in a kind of bad situation because I had no contract with a Fred, any kind of paper to say then how long I can stay there or how much the rent's going to be. So he pretty much had me. He could do as he pleased. But then Susan came to rescue.
I remembered that, I don't know if you guys remember, but in one of the last episodes, we did the repair of Fred's deck when it was rotten, and he wrote us a letter of recommendation about how much he liked it, and he recommended us to his neighbor who hired us to build his garage and office. So we had that to show the boat mover, and it was kind of a good thing.
So, armed with a ladder, next day I went to see the boat mover. As I came to his office, there was another guy in the office, so I walked in and I said, so what happened? How the Fred got a hold of you? So he told me that he sent a notice to a Fred yard, then he's going to be coming with his semi-truck to pick up a boat, and he had to notify him, then he's going to be coming to his property. And the Fred called him and told him then I was not a good guy to hang around with. So anyway, I told the guy, I said, "Could you read this letter, please?" And I handed it to him. He opened the letter, he started reading it and started smiling. And when he finished, he looked at me and says, "You know, I knew he was a old, ornery man, but I didn't realize how ornery he was." He shook my hand and he says, "Saturday, 10 o'clock, I'm going to be there, be ready. We will take you out of the yard." So a big weight fell off my neck.
He must have had a lot of faith in Jules because he didn't sign any kind of contract and he wanted us to still work on his house and do his skylight, so it was kind of good.
So anyway, a letter from a Fred stated that he knows me and I will do a very good job for his neighbor and he highly recommend me, so that was a big plus, and I think Fred probably forgot about the letter. So anyway, I came back to the boatyard. I told Susan that everything's back in order. As I walked across the boatyard, Fred was standing out there. He was smirking at me.
He thought he had us.
But I did not say anything to him. I just walked to our boat and got back to work. We had 2 days left. There was a Thursday, and Saturday was the day to be moving out.
We were in a working frenzy. We're a lot of things to be done.
Anyway, following day, Friday, we went and purchased a generator because we knew we needed some electric power to be able to run our power tools like a skill saw, drills, and so forth. Me and Susan drove our pickup truck to a beach in Shelter Island to see the place we're gonna go anchored. It was already dark. As we were sitting on the beach, we were looking out into the darkness. And
how are we going to find our boat in the dark?
And we were both wondering. I said, how in the hell are we going to find our boat in the dark? You know, it's like this here. We had a big dream. We had a willing to do it, but we had a zero experiences.
Right.
We were very much a novices. But it shows you that if you have a willpower and you really want something bad enough, you always find a way to do it.
And we were young, so.
And, Saturday, boatyard was pretty much empty. And a boat mover came with his semi-truck and a big trailer. I helped him load the boat on a trailer, and we had a hell of a time to try to get out of the boatyard.
There was like an inch inch between boats to get through.
We show you some pictures, which will show it to you then how close it was for us to move out. It was almost to a point that we would have to rent a crane to get her out of there. Anyway,
no, we didn't have to.
Anyway, we worked out. Everything's worked out good. He pulled the boat out of the yard. When he got on the street, he stopped and waited for me. I locked the gate behind us. There was a big sign of relief and a new life in front of us.
And we thought that was the last we're ever going to have to see Fred.
Yes. So anyway, as we drove down the road, I was driving with a truck in front of it with a wide load sign. We got into the Cattenburg boatyard where we unloaded the boat, and she was ready to be launched within a couple hours.
You'll see by the pictures how little we actually had on the cabin top and the deck. It was really nothing done except for the hatches.
The boat was very, very bare. There was no portholes, there was no rigging, no mast. There was just nothing. It was just an empty shell with
the floor.
With the floor. That was pretty much, and one bunk inside. So anyway, yeah, I paid one of the friends of mine who had a 17-foot fishing boat, a small fishing boat. I paid him $50 to come and tow me to Anchorage, which was about a mile and a half from the boatyard. I had to go in the back of the room to work with the emergency tiller, while Susan was outside yelling through the hatch, a little more to the left or a little more to the right, straight up and so forth. Now downstairs was very, very dark because we had no portholes, so I was sitting there like in a dark cave with a flashlight, not knowing what's happening outside, but holding to an emergency tiller and try doing my best. He brought us to Anchorage. I deployed first, then for anchor, and the current took me down, so it helped me set it up. I untied from a friend's boat and he left, and I got in the dinghy and rowed the second anchor behind our boat and deployed the second anchor, so I pretty much set up the mooring, and from the swivel the line came out to our boat. So after the friend left and we was finished anchoring, we sat down on our cabin top, and we were saying then, okay, so here's going to be our home, God knows for how long. It was very nice scenery, anchoring right in front of Shelter Island Beach. San Diego has a nice panoramic view, so it looks very, very nice. As we went downstairs to the boat to survey our domain, we realized what's waiting for us. We had a boat which floats, there was no leaks in it.
She floated on her lines, really nice.
But we had a floor with a one bunk. We bought a Coleman camping stove,
right,
which is going to be our cooking
facilities.
And I got a 5-gallon bucket, which is going to be for washing dishes. You cannot get any more basic than that. We were really, really like in the camping. So that was all what we had at that time. But we were young, we were in love.
Idealistic.
And we had a big dream.
Okay guys, so I guess that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed the video and got something out of it. And please don't forget to leave a comment and a thumb up if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.